Number one problem I have with 9mm fanboys, let's get right into it. Number one, the belief in firepower until smaller calibers are mentioned. This right here sort of pisses me off because even though 22 LR is the only exception to a caliber that's probably has failed multiple people and that has been recorded to actually fail, when it comes to being used in self-defense, for some odd reason, this goes over a lot of 9mm fanboys' heads. You cannot convince them that any other caliber is better. Number two, the belief that bigger bullets are only in there for the lack of proficiency of the shooter. For some odd reason, even though that I mentioned the prior argument that they themselves wouldn't go to smaller calibers, typically just due to the lack of firepower. And even though that the smaller calibers could still be reliable and cheaper, and which means you can get in more training to potentially be more proficient with it, you cannot tell that to a 9mm fanboy. And then when you tell them about when it comes to firepower, the potential of other calibers for some odd reason that's bigger, they typically would hit you with this argument.
Yeah, I mean, when you really think about it, I mean, the most important thing is shot placement. I mean, I actually killed a chupacabra with a 22 long rifle one time, you know? And it was all about shot placement. Shot him dead, drop, just like that. So, stopping power isn't everything, you know? It's all shot placement. Stopping power means nothing. Yeah, I don't carry a 22 because it doesn't have enough stopping power. So I carry 9mm. You know? Shot placement is everything.
Number three, this one is how I know somebody is just being a follower when it comes to the gun community and just overall doesn't know much, is when they choose the 9mm caliber and say that that's the best one just because everyone else has it. Now that is a red flag right then and there. If anyone is talking like that, do not listen to them. They have not done enough research on overall all calibers, because you can see that these calibers and guns are used in a lot of channels, you know, to proven to be good for self-defense. Active Self-Protection is a good YouTube channel where you can actually go watch, where he'll talk about the other types of calibers and the amount of rounds and all that you need to use from actual live footage of a gunfight. But nothing screams amateur more than not being able to debate or talk about other calibers. And they seemingly, for some reason, hold that point, forgetting that just because it's good in the person's hands who was a military veteran or actually had some experience while he was in law enforcement, or the competition shooters, for some odd reason, when you're telling that to a 9mm fanboy, they can't seem to grasp the reality that just because a caliber is good in either your hands or in the hands of the people that you're copying doesn't mean that it's a good caliber in everyone else's hands. And that's just gonna quickly lead me on to the next point. The belief that everyone should have the caliber without considering the capabilities of a person. I'm pretty sure we all heard from 380 SL, or even of that and other smaller calibers like 25 ACP or 32 ACP, that is typically described as a girl's gun, or for elderly and weak people, or for people who's looking for the cheap route, which I don't see. I didn't know it was an issue with having cheaper bullets, as long as it's still effective, which also lets you know that you're also listening to a follower and somebody who hasn't done their research. But these type of fanboys of the calibers are quick to give it to their girlfriends, or to recommend it to people on their YouTube channel, or just overall anyone else around them, sometimes without giving a description of other calibers. But typically you're going to hear the argument of that's either going to be too hard or heavy for you, and other calibers are going to be too weak for self-defense. Although there's little proof for that. There's no proof for that, matter of fact. Screw a little. I don't know where these people, despite not being able to list out some type of research or put a link into the YouTube channel, they just somehow have a full-on belief, despite having no personal experience with using it in self-defense, would force to push the caliber onto other people. And at one point, I used to think like that. Yeah, if it's good in mine, and this is what the YouTuber says, then it'll be good in everyone's hands. But once again, you promoting that way of thinking or pushing that out there could potentially put a gun in somebody's hands who they're not really putting the most of training for, or you could potentially end up scaring a new gun owner away due to your lack of research. Now that's just a quick little run through as to why I don't like 9mm fanboys and why I think they're an issue in the gun community.